So then, viewing all sentient beings as having had the experience of one's mother, utilizing the example of the mother of this life as the standard for that kindness, and then wishing to repay that kindness. So here then, how should one view all of these kind individuals? Here then, there is an example given. So if you can picture in your mind being the only child of an old mother, who we see in front of us as an old lady who's staggering along a dangerous path atop a high, rocky cliff face. And of course, being an old lady, wandering there without anybody to assist her, it would be quite dreadful if we were just to let her wander in a kind of in a healthy state. But in addition to being in that danger of wandering up that path, she is mentally disturbed with the destructive emotion. She is also blinded, that's to say, the wisdom eye has been put out, so she can't see the path well. If she was with a guide, you might say that would be okay, but she's bereft of any kind of guide. So this is likened then to a person who's somehow gotten to a high state of existence, but is precariously close to falling down to the kind of lower realms of existence. One whose mind is disturbed by the destructive emotions. One whose kind of wisdom of knowing what to uptake and what to abandon with regard to action, cause and effect, etc., has been put out or is blinded. One who is bereft of any kind of spiritual guide who could take one by the hand and lead one along that kind of dangerous route so that one would not plummet down and pass away on the kind of rocky face below, but rather utilize it well in order to get up to a higher kind of plane, so to speak. So this is the kind of situation within which we find our kind mother sentient beings, who crying out to us for help. So how would we be if we were just to say, oh, just let her get on with it, if she dies, she dies? What kind of an attitude would that be? So thus one should contemplate, I myself should bring about the happiness of all sentient beings. And if I think of each and every one of them wishing to give them happiness, the material happiness is not something which is long-lasting. And wishing to remove their kind of suffering by temporarily removing a kind of a lack of something, lack of wealth or food or something, is not really bring about the ultimate kind of removal of dissatisfaction, the cause thereof. So wishing to bring each and every person happiness in the cause, and then remove each and every one of their dissatisfactions and the cause, and then thinking that I myself take the responsibility for this, one gives rise to this superior intention. Thinking then to bring about the happiness of others, contemplating how wonderful it would be all sentient beings would have happiness and the cause thereof, and then thinking this again and again, and then contemplating how the human situation is one within which one is pitted with dissatisfaction, and then thinking how wonderful it would be if each and every sentient being were free of this dissatisfaction and the cause thereof. These then are in turn the reflections upon great, that is to say, referring to all love and great compassion. But there's still at this juncture no kind of strong impulse from one side to take it upon oneself to bring about all sentient beings' happiness in the cause and remove all of their dissatisfaction and the cause. So it is only at the time of the kind of special intention, that is to say, thinking, I myself will take the responsibility of bringing this about. It's at that juncture one kind of meditates, or one has generated the kind of superior intention to bring about the welfare of all sentient beings.
아니 동네다 되는 거는 거기 삼바디 제부터 무슨 게 레마도 이제 다가서 동네다 되나 대화다 되나 삼바삼기 빈도 말봐 대도다네 그러니 대화 탐지 대자마다 동네 탐지다 저기 차소나 엔제다 탐지 대화 탐지다 대마도 동네 탐지를 대위 누가 지어 그러나 대화당 마치 동네다 제마도나 현신대 되네 대화 탐지다 대마도 동네 탐지를 줘야지 제도가 말봐 제가 되게 인도산에 알레 탐보 랑이 되는 경고서에 내가 조바 산지를 고본데 더버지 대찬에 되는 산신제 다한테 라니게 니고 고본다는 고본 되면 되네 샘제버지 제부터 무슨지선에 대다 샘제 받는 신진체 당다도도 저주 뇌제는 소리 되네 제부터 무슨지지 다 샘제 다한테 산지가 살아도 다니 제수 되네 라니 산지를 고본 더버 제게 세야지 추주대로 쓰지 다시 다한테 냠도 상자와 되버잖아 냠버대로 쓰지 추주세는 추구 조지 생전강으로 내 대조래야 소소 두고야가 이 추주대로 쓰지 생기 생기만 해서 냠버대로 쓰지도 고 주당에 냠버요 고아 냠버 고아당에 냠버 되게 대나로 요배 믿은가 냠도 조기 레제네 주인 기반을 보네 되는 거지 사건 살려야 동기 삼별로 냠버대로 쓰지 대야세지 생기만 해서 생기 생기만 제부대로 쓰지
So then, if we read from page 11, second column, second paragraph, thinking then, however, do I have the power to accomplish these two wishes, not to mention all sentient beings' wishes? Then one doesn't have such power to even free oneself from this dissatisfaction, or place even one individual in the transcendental happiness. For that very reason, I make the resolve to attain complete and perfect Buddhahood. And now if I give up that resolve, surely I will fall to the lower realms. Yet, I can do nothing to free beings from suffering and place them in peerless happiness until I have myself achieved complete and perfect Buddhahood. So therefore, I should immediately start working in every conceivable way to realize the state of complete, perfect enlightenment. So taking this as the basis of thought to be able to free all sentient beings from the deepest suffering and bring them to ultimate joy. So here it's imperative not to jump in at the deep end, but rather to contemplate the cycle of existence, and within there all the different types of rebirth that we can achieve, and then think of the various stages of cessation or nirvana, and contemplate if rebirth in any of those places will warrant us the potential to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering and place them all in this absence of dissatisfaction. And through this thorough contemplation, one will ultimately come to the conclusion that it is only the state of complete and perfect Buddhahood that will allow us to have the wonderful opportunity to lead each and every sentient being away from dissatisfaction and place them, or rather give them the causes of happiness that they so desire. So when one comes to this conclusion, it is that time that one has given rise to the mind of bodhicitta, which is the mind wishing to achieve the state of perfection, of complete and perfect Buddhahood, for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it is this mindset, when it's generated within oneself in an uncontrived fashion, which opens the door to the greater vehicle, and then it's in dependence upon this that we start to engage in those actions which will bring about our future enlightenment, in order then to benefit all sentient beings. So this then is the attitude which is known as the king-like bodhicitta. When we talk about bodhicitta, there are three ways of looking at it. The king-like is the actual bodhicitta. It is a mind within which we understand that in order to liberate each and every sentient being from suffering and to grant them the happiness they so desire, one must be in the best position to work for their welfare. So it is akin to seizing the kingship, and after having seized that, one can work for the welfare of one's subjects. If one is just sitting in a quiet corner somewhere saying, well, I'll bring about the happiness and welfare of all sentient beings, it's just a dream. if one actually wishes to bring about the welfare of all sentient beings, one must be in the position to actually do that. And the best position to work for their welfare is to, like a king works for the welfare of his subject, to be in the position of fully enlightened one, and therefore therefrom to work for the welfare of all sentient beings without exception. We also find other types of bodhicitta. There is one which is known as the shepherd-like, within which one has the attitude of leading all sentient beings to the state of complete and perfect Buddhahood, and after having kind of secured them in the pen of that Buddhahood, then oneself achieves the state of complete and perfect Buddhahood, just as a shepherd herds his flock into a pen, and then kind of goes to the pen itself lastly. So in just the same way, one leads all sentient, one drives rather all sentient beings to the state of Buddhahood, and then achieves it oneself. And then there is the second type, which is known as the ferryman type, within which oneself and all sentient beings go to the state of Buddhahood together. And this is likened to a ferryman taking his passengers on a boat, and then kind of starting off from one port together, and then arriving on the other side of the river all together. So these two types of bodhicitta are not perfect, as they do not have within them the complete characteristics of bodhicitta. The one which does is the king-like bodhicitta, within which one seizes the kingdom, that is to say, becomes perfect oneself, that is to say, achieves the state of complete and perfect Buddhahood, and from that status works for the welfare of the subject-like sentient beings without exception.
나지로 중모도 도모야 남제들도 또바 줄에 집에 개대 가데르서나 첸디 당시들 나 첸디를 비지부지 주나 나 첸디야 부지 통나 삼을 삼을 수라 로가 맞추가 가사 간가로기 첸디 코나 삼되고 소소 첸디를 배야 부지 주나 아니 맞도 대편진 상황돼요 그다 되네 인도다네 첸디 남게 셴바디 숙증고 유나 지금 중모도 도모야 남제들도 또바 줄에 집어서 개지 대여도단에 단주 전체와다 예바가와다 초와마다바다 안에 내송부도 내다 jamro다 렌데다 도조선로 땅에 어디에 천지생의 디셔준다 천지생도 그걸 줘야 돼. 제 치마들 개침 버렸어. 제 치매 변화돼 하고 좀도나 천지 쇼를 버렸어. 내가 말한다 제가 두두도 하고 좋나 공부도 쇼를 버렸어. 그다 되나지 인도단에 세침에 변화돼 하고 좋나 천지 쇼를 버렸으면 천지를 능중체 세침은 düny가 삼바티비 좀만 많이 봐 숙적고 야고지 제 돈아 집을 중원도 중요한 문제가 되는데 또 버줄에 집에 채대 대인도단에 다 대용화 잡아라 가서 이제 휴대하게 단주 대체와다 신예벌까지 먼저돼야 오산었다 돈아 근데 주 제대로 삼바 주 제대로 삼바 연애 주에 다단지도 제가 다 제가 제도 처음에 담아서 내버려 남칠랑 내봐 내봐 주마도 관계점 못해봐 근데 상황에 당연히 최대비 다단지도 제거가지 다죠 대전에 다 대게 중산에 되는다 시부도 타네 다가도 매바 제부고 말이 저하나 제사양 대로도 내도 니를 만들어 대인도 타네 다니 소를 되나 야월 사람도 동네 이달 때문에 동네 둘러라 레지 tú모도 동네 제래 제사요 동네로 소고 동네 산지면 저거 요아 인자 다 동네 대래 때네 줘야 되시다 커버 내가 말아서 맨다 사면하는 라고주니 까만 같이 되고 전에 대토야 깔래고 싶어요 데모 그 맨다고 주투니 제외 처럼 본적서나 그래서 대표도는 제 뼈테나만 줘야 먼저 제게 그다 저기라 가져야 커버 거야 제가 대인도 동네 참모자에 서박하고 대인도 단에 아니 단에 성고 동네에 간데 수술도 거리 그 소라 매병에 성고 동네에 농고 전에 chatabzani yenda tele probe jauchi zebu do samache ya tene ta jamni ada sanji nyati sanji kurde ni ha jiba thamjele thorsimba yen jiba le do tabla kheba pen tamata thamje ji nan seba wala nyere me du tuji chimbo ngao de son tane sanji le jo sanji ta chimbo teya mobe demba da lanji demba le de thonga teya chu unjo mobe demba da lanji demba la unjo chinde ju bona 나 대대면 뭐랑 사ችን 것도 수주라마에 파베 가사도 말아도 되네 라운드 다르고 이제 되네 교수 되네 왜나 내가 배시다게 첩침보 나자 배슈 타고 유대가 되네지 유나 나자 대 잡아래야 멤버 켜가지고 매 서가지고 저도지 내어보고 계속 맞잖아 never the talk about this. Never be never to the year and one and never not ever day in a Tisunga Madonna Nele Photo Madis. We didn't see Maranto didn't take your Toma Mavan and Tate Batu, no one be joining in that day by Sunday. Near him, near the name with any bit never each other. And had the substitution priority, the Dutch don't do no song. Near the Hajam the Bay, shoot symbol down the day. Joan Joe Mongo and the Madame Pembache, Tungela King, or that the substitution which are the other. They knew Gelatin, member Keba and the Sanji John de la Jofu. There are some more than the Chula Jofu. They don't get in hell than the public can do it. So that day and that the native Jonia Kunju soon let you go at the men, so that and then you done it. Then the Kunju on the Josu is and near Taba the Kunju let you change Josu. That Kunju let Josu draw at Sangi in your money. Josu Habjada switch in the hub. Habja Karriera, Dibapon, Gyotu, for the teacher. They do done it. Let you did not just switch in the hub, or that Dibatamone, Gyotamone group, or that editing. They won't get to switch in the hub, or that they don't limit again somewhat and some down by the ten, and that's it. Someone Chumbo Chumba, send it short sound of children. Here in Britannia, Tibu Chumbo the Tumo around him over duality, said in his.
So then to summarize the teachings and into kind of points for contemplation, we've gone through the graduated stages of the path and the contemplations in common with of lesser, middling, and then the unique contemplations of a person of greater capacity have been started upon and be concluded tomorrow. So let us look then at these three different types or different classifications of contemplations and look at them from the point of view of their obstacles. If we understand what the obstacle to the generation of those kind of spiritual realizations are, we'll understand exactly what the objects to those antidotes or obstacles or blockages to spiritual growth are, and therefore we'll know exactly how to practice. We think of the contemplations of a person of lesser capacity. Now, a person of lesser capacity, as you know, is one who gives up this life and focuses upon his well-being, for his or her well-being in the future lives. So that individual's practice is aimed at achieving betterment, that is to say, the divine or human states in the future. So he's given up this particular life in order to focus upon gathering the causes of that. So the main antidote to a person of lesser capacity, or the main blockage for the spiritual development of such an individual, is a gross attachment to the activities of this short life. So when we think about that, we think about the contemplations of utilizing, of appreciation for our human existence, its impermanence, the fact that when we pass away, we're not just going to disappear, contemplating the refuge-granting ability of the three jewels, and then the presentation of action, cause and effect. These contemplations then are which, when done serially, that which turn one's mind away from kind of transient pleasures of this short, and working solely for the transient pleasures of this short life. So appreciating the predicament within which we find ourselves, our human existence, and contemplating how this is not something which is going to last forever. It is something which is transient. We are certainly going to die. The time of our death is unknown. And the only thing that's of use to us is that spiritual practice which we've accomplished in this life. That's the only thing that's useful for us at the time of death. Why is that? Because when we die, we are going to go somewhere. And the place we are going to go is either a delightful one, or is a difficult one. If we think of that, and think of what has the power to protect one, we'll contemplate then these three jewels, contemplate the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and contemplating the Buddha, contemplating the wondrous qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, activity, and qualities. And the reason why the Buddha is something so extraordinary is because the Buddha has taught the truth of the cessation and the path leading to the cessation of dissatisfaction based upon his own experience, and it is that which he kind of teaches us. So it's that which, independence upon which we can practice, and therefore achieve that cessation. And the way of relating to the Buddha is as a patient, relies upon not only a doctor as the person who is able to kind of diagnose our illness and then grant us the respective medicine which will bring about our kind of healthiness, remove the illness. So then the Buddha is related to as a doctor. The actual thing which eradicates our illness is the medicine. So here then, the medicine, the Dharma is likened to the medicine because it is the taking of the Dharma which is the actual thing which will bring about our kind of betterment. And in order to aid us in that digestion, we need to rely upon a nurse. So the Sangha then is likened to the nurse, this virtuous community of individuals who aid one in one's spiritual practice. So one needs the three of these, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, together to as the suitable refuge, and then one relies upon them. And then in addition to that, it's not just through reciting I go for refuge there too, that one is liberated, rather one contemplates action, cause and effect, and through this contemplation we understand how then to kind of liberate ourselves through engaging in what positive actions, wholesome actions there are, and to abandon negative actions. Therefore then, the teaching of action, cause and effect is given, which in essence is engage in wholesome activities and abandon negative activities. So as that then as one's refuge, one turns one's interest away from gross absorption in this short life and places one's emphasis on one's future life. But then there comes the doubt. You may wonder, well, isn't it, just through focusing on the future, then everything of this life will fall away? And this is actually not what happens. It is like that is like saying, if you would like to have hay and a husk, then you plant a barley and a rice seed. You don't care much for the fruit, which is rice and barley, but rather just caring for the straw and for the husk that comes therefrom. And this is rather stupid, because if you were to plant rice and barley and aim for achieving that fruition, you'll get like husk and straw as a byproduct. So in just the same way, when focusing upon the kind of well-being of oneself in the future, that is to say, engaging in wholesome activity and abandoning negative activity, with the aim of bringing about betterment for oneself in the future, as a kind of part of this process, one gains the kind of short-term benefits of this life without being overly interested or engrossed in. So when one has contemplated such, so much so that one is not kind of grossly interested in the affairs of this life, one has abandoned gross and subtle negativity and taken up arousing themselves in a positive action, then within this frame of mind, one is generating then the spiritual realization, which is common to a person of initial or smaller capacities that are turning one's mind away from this, the attraction of this life and focusing on the future.
Oh yeah. That TV tomorrow Ramje the man yone chebale ne sendi na she de pa go ne dene da chima tuni go sanu pike. De ndo da ne sanje gi chu su ne dujale ya thambo onto tuni go sambache. Dene mile tuni go sambache tuwa. Tabshi de space. Thambo chen digi na wale chamba lo ne se chima onto rada mi ko bon thambe go sambale chiba chiba. 아무도 하다 미에 루디 터디가 선바디 총차에 참 되네. 제가 힘을 써야 오만해. 아니서는 딘도 루디 터버 있나요? 딘도 루디 내 카시 터버 있나요? 레다 녀모비 형도 주치지 되라. 남시 형 내fon도 좀 쓰바데. 딘도 고고 내 카시 터버 있나요? 야 근데 내fon도 좀 쓰바데. 바담 발라마도 좀 요리. 코시텔 내가 있나요? 냐외 상카를 내봐다. 제발 매해는 소리야. 지대는 포슈데 시대가 대한다 묘카운티 삼대시 주미시 컴 고소다 고는 그 주미시가 나그 담보티 포슈데 시대 소다 시대된 지대제 컴건가는 포슈 있나요? 시대 문제는 좀 더나요. 나는 내가 상가를 내가 제발요. 남지 레송부 해봐 줘도 되는데 내 내가다 태윤도 내 손으로만 손을 다 그대 인도산에 호안하는가 내 친제들 땡제 되어 예매봐 동네 결혼식에 만대봐 그래서는 개반 남라 소리장 녀와타도 총거 조르세는 세다 개바 세도 소라고 간다 손도 주베 개바도 좀 보고 봤다 윤들 딘도 토리를 내봐 얘나요. 녀와를 내봐도 제발 내봐. 근데 이 중을 잡아 대마도 이미 저 그거지 말이에요. 호안 고아성에 대한 내 친지 되는 땡지 되어지 사는 해봐. 눈에 벌게 됐어. 그래서는 저 강당 아니 내 강당 내나요. 눈에 되네. 저 강대에다 말아요. 눈에 좀 보고. 론주 강대에다 론주를 주나요. 눈에 그면 론주 됐어. 제가 되게 인도산에 땡지 되어지 싸워는 요만했어. 대단하네. 다들 제가는 지금 동시에 사는 시험 와지. 다 동네지 그러다 동네 손데 지글라바이나. 동네지 동네 세야데 루데 나타다 세지 동네지. 예? 메다 두루 관계 저기야 말이 되게 이 누가. 주로 동네 세도 사제도 좋아 되어데. 사제도 좋아 되어데 tunruki tene tele yin jong tukyo meya tene mibe kage yin jong tukyo tene da bom jamde samde shibe mushi tabe phasa tutuki tele yin jong tukyo samde shibane dewa meya samde sumba ninchela mada dewa yamanaba tene da sache ki tsuwa dewa ti tene juwe tukyo te karre sana ko kiche thambo tela tene dewa tabuchi yuwari de chantangan 근데 유해림데 대வை에는 그 동네도 봐 주고. 근데 가르에서는 계제 담보텔라 동네 문주왕 가베 차네 대화다 문구여야 돼 마도 랑이 모데 대화돼요 말이야. 랑이 모데 대화에는 제가 같이 론줘나요. 대화랑 내 보고리. 근데 또 그거 봤어. 그 동네를 주더래. 근데 동네기 주나 같이 내나요. 그 동네랑 모를 대기는 마도 한 준네 대화를 주도야 돼 매야. 어쨌든 그때는 지금 그거를 듣기요 말이야. 사실도 좋아 대화 때는 다 어제 차를 동네 답을 잘 잡아야나. 전로 방파나 전탱신 이제 공부를 기부요 하나. 다 되는 이유는 뭐지? 너도 손에 차이도 와. 어디? 내가 가르쳐서는 그 라신지 대화에는 내가 같이 론줘나 대화랑 대고 그래서 내주면 와. 주말 양고 동네 사바 제고 하나지 드로디 시다 드로데베 가냐 깔레 카스는 대버바 대는 담보치 보듯이 도가 대타 야 깔레체는 로나마도 되게 이거 뒤주면 와 대다 근데 다 같이 조에 동네에 대는 문주와 가도요 얘네 거 대화 챙겨 해줘야만 야 유세는 야 동네에 대는지 세 저것도나 칼라세는 대화라 내가 칼라 사탄 그거 나와다 그거 시야가나 야 근데 그거 내고 얘가 반대 가래 얘나면은 사진 여와는 풍분 딜라 런칭제 될라 땡제 대화 자원에 해봐 동네가 라진 뭐지 임바 난 내가 때 도와드지 뭐라 봐 대대 모두 지기 그 풍을 대대봐 동네가 만대비 대화 뭐지 그런지 땡 뭐지 자 내가 어디 땡도 전에 가르사 이제 소말 가르사 시작을 첨번 남라 셈 이지데 남반나나 루주고 눈에니지 지데데 내레내레 좀을 계속 첨보도 니 첨보도 돌려야 셈 누구 동네야만 셈도 동네 시다요 또 제거 좀 뭐야다 아소도 지 고마워 좀 뭐야다 다들 내가 잘 되었다 만들어서 서로 망고지 땅에 셈도 동네 미 첨보도 돌려 루주 동네 미 저것도 들려. 멤버나는 루지 됐다. 멤버도 또 볼래가 제 보아를 걸레자 보아를 누구 동네 와서 샘데 타거든요. 친구 남나 이게 멤버나는 루지고. 동네니 진제데 내레 저거 치수다. 이주 동네다 루주 동네니 부티기 니마데데 제대도 좀 좀네 대화 좀네 누구야 그래서 근데 시작했어. 근데 다가나지 제단이 친구 제베노 동네 꾸지고 이게 미롱 세베 표조지 이미 레네죠. 카베 되어라 되니 쳐보죠. 진짜 나오죠. 자 가라서 제 로즈는 뭐야 매봐. 사유 코 렌츠 코 통한테 지고 해서 렌츠 코지 동반이나 또는 야도 코 카고야 동네에 설두가 그 카고를 보는거 제가 집에 뭐만 매봤어. 근데 제가 그 걔는 뭔거야 이거다. 그 론줘야 돼. 그 뭔비 채도 론줘가 와. 내가 론줘는 뭐야 매봐. 어떻게 대다 가데 내가 제베나 노론줘도 차차바이나 같이 연애요. 텔레하고 좀 양 텔레라가서 초시다는 제도야 매봐. 다 소소 샘도 뭐니 조시 제베이나 지금도 상수 제베 소소 샘 조시 제베와 제마도 그러나라데 한 뒤서 세야지 야마 샘 조시 마제베이나 나제 제도 단에 그래서 다 도다지 조시 연나 아니 추불 했어 노르메나요 추불 했어 노메도 이제 양단 줘봐라 어때 노르메나요 생각다 조시다 지금 누워서 조시연 추불 차려 다 조시 맨 우벌 그거 대바스는 데려야 rinpoche 지니에 나대 아니 우부 두수들 때고도서 저부세제처럼 우부 두수들 해서 저부세제 때 너네도 방거를 봐. 오와 대거를 봐. 오와 대박이 거는 입에 rinpoche 저부세제 때 저런 배 우수들 해서 다 생기 다 맞지 근데 만지 뭐 망고 해야 되면 저부세제 찾아. 나도 아까 가도 지르고 봐. 저부세제다 그 저부선다지 접시가 돈다를 담아서 먹고 싶은 줄 거야. 제티 뭐 좋은 제 대대요 인사. 그 저부세제 이제 보다 되나 지금. 제가 대에서 저부세제 저번에 요할 때 얘는 샘게 됐다. 그 지금부터서 시작이 우신 폼에 눈에 샘이라 우신 폼에 눈에 요 인사 왠기 우부차. 제가 다 조심해나 너를 위해나요. 우봉구 동네 세트고요. 조심해나 아니 너를 매네요. 우봉구 동네 세트. 다들 삼바 좀 가려고. 어제 다들 라면체 삼바 삼바 제리 누가 그 되는 라면 소지 그 삼바 제레스 제가 공부 좀 거리 초시 땡기 고잖나 고칸나 추보 고냐 텐데 데이도 제 여바 저가 땡기 맞추러 이해서 제가 초시 여배 메디기 고칸서 고칸을 컴바요 어디 초시 땡기 고칸나 추보 고냐 텐데 도서 초시 여배 메디기 아니 왜 추보배 원래 년에 대셔서 저가 땡기 맞춰야 돼요. 저가 제가 여대가 되게 그 초시 여배 메디 그 지부 여배 신고요. 가대에나 가대 몇주 전에 됐지. 그래서 근데 인도산에 집에 명함 동에 군주 고선서. 이때 메론선에 다들 이때 뭐 돌고야 되는만도 너는 먹고 왔대 인도 돼야지. 자한테 매버. 전부 탐한테 막 뭐야. 체배 탐한테 자원. 조베 사베 탐한테 세버. 체배 탐한테 치워. 애단 제딘지 그래서 탐지 타르 구베면 두베 매서 타 구베 두베 그걸 구도 되시나 왜 매버지 사니까 내가 근데 인도 산에 그래서 좀 런지 표정 좀 다 내가 가게 기회나요 힘못 싸워는 매버 돌고 셔다지 인도 산에 그걸 표정 가게 기회나요 이게 매버 근데 왜 돌고 셔다지는 힘부 매버 임바디 상로야 고지 땅은 내전 선배님들 상로야 고지 땅 뽑아 있나 아니 집에 당시에도 그 인종을 집에 당시에도 그 인종대 용소는 아니 스바 타다를 셴벌로 그 인종의 삼바키 이제 손은 기본 된다 구멍에 남겨질 그 똑같이 유럽게
So contemplating that the spiritual contemplations or meditations of a person of middling capacity, the kind of the obstacle to this person's spiritual pursuits is again an interest within finding well-being in future existences, whether they be divine or human. So, in order to turn away from the supposed happiness and well-being, which is part and parcel, supposedly, of these human and divine states, one should then contemplate each and every one of those states and to see if they really do offer us any lasting happiness. Here then, when we contemplate such, it's imperative that we meditate on the shortcomings of dwelling within this one life, and through dependence upon that, we generate a mind which turns towards the future. And then when analysing the future, then we turn away from that future and look for liberation from the cycle of existence in and of itself. Because without serially training, without initially turning one's mind away from a temporal obsession with this life and focusing on the future, and then we will not have that kind of future as the focal point of our contemplation. And so, with regard to this kind of focal point, then, future existences, from wanting to have well-being for the future, it is imperative then that we contemplate so that this arises clearly in our mind, that our mind or our attitude is one within which we are searching for then some kind of happiness away from, or in the future from, this short, transient life. When we think about then the human and divine states, which we may achieve through engaging in positive action and abandoning negative action, when we contemplate these states of existence, we can utilize the contemplations or meditations as we've been taught, that is the four great and the four minor sufferings of the human realm, and then the introduction to the dissatisfaction wrought through fighting, and then through of the demigod realm, and then the dissatisfaction and pain which is received on the mental level through those of divinities at the time when they fall from their heavenly existence. We can contemplate utilizing all those meditation instructions But in essence, we should contemplate utilizing what are known as the three different types of dissatisfaction. So these three types of dissatisfaction then are three contemplations of existence, which we can apply to any state of existence, something which is very easy to understand, and something which is practical in the sense that we can really relate to the different levels or different types of dissatisfaction which are being described therein. So here, initially, we should contemplate the supposed kind of higher realms of existence as human and various states of divinities, and within these realms of existence, different types of experience. Technically, this first of these dissatisfactory types of experience is known as the dissatisfaction of dissatisfaction, or the suffering of which is just that. And this is something which is easy to apprehend. Having a cold, being depressed, having a headache, being upset, these temporary kind of physical and mental discomforts which we undergo as part and parcel of our kind of a daily kind of existence. This kind of gross, you might say, dissatisfaction which we experience is then what is known as the first of these recognitions of looking at our life and seeing ultimately if it is something which is bringing us kind of joy or not. Secondly is a little bit more subtle, a little bit more difficult to apprehend, because it is this which is known within the world as pleasure and joy. But here then, we have to really look at our experience and the nature of the objects which we encounter to enjoy such experiences. If we look at them objectively for a while, let's look at what is seemingly joyful. Let's look at what is seemingly bringing us some great kind of joy and benefit. To use the technical term, all those enjoyments are contaminated in that they are just products of contaminated action which is wrought through destructive emotion. So therefore the very nature is dissatisfactory. So then let us utilize that using some examples and to see if this really relates to our experience or not. If we think of the things that we do in our life to have happiness and well-being, do the actions we engage in and the objects with which we interact actually bring us this happiness in any kind of temporary, in any kind of ultimate, long-lasting sense? If we, for example, look at ourselves in the immediate moment, we go to a cold place, we kind of feel a bit uncomfortable, so the first thing we do is to turn on the heater. And for the first few moments, then we do feel warm and we feel kind of pleasant. But even though we feel this pleasure, and it is quite pleasurable, isn't it? Even though we feel this pleasure for a few moments, then what happens after the heat continues to be pumped out of the heater? We start to feel uncomfortable, perhaps we feel too hot, perhaps we start to cough and to wheeze, perhaps we start to feel that our skin is kind of drying on the bone, so to speak. We start to feel uncomfortable, so we have to turn off the heater. And it's the same when we're in a very warm environment. We turn on the air conditioning, and for a while we enjoy the kind of cool which comes from the fan, from the air conditioning. We kind of kick back and we think, oh, this is really great, I'm really cool, it was really warm outside, now I'm really enjoying the cool of this air conditioning. But does it last? After a while, the stomach starts to feel a bit upset, perhaps we have some phlegm gathering in the throat from the drying out of the air, etc. It doesn't really give us this long-lasting satisfaction. Same with food. If we're hungry, we wish to dispel this hunger, then we go to a restaurant, we order some nice food, and we partake of it. And of course, if we just eat, then we feel quite satisfied. But if we were to continue eating, how would we feel then? Because it's this very food which is bringing us a feeling of contentment and well-being. So surely the more we indulge in it, the more kind of contentment and happiness we should feel, if there is some ultimate happiness and some ultimate kind of relief from pain to be gained from this indulgence. But we find that if we overindulge ourselves, if we kind of pig out, so to speak. What we gain from that is an upset stomach, perhaps a headache, diarrhea, etc. So ultimately, then we're not gaining anything from this kind of partaking of this food, apart from dissatisfaction. So here then it's important to note that even though we do experience, and there's no denying this, temporary pleasure, it is not something which is everlasting, and it is not something which it has an inherent kind of pleasure-granting-ness to it, in the sense that if heaters or coolers or food ultimately had an ability to give us everlasting well-being, then the more we would take of it, if its nature was such, the more we would partake of it or indulge in it, the more we would enjoy. But actually, as its nature is not that, the more we indulge in it, the more we get dissatisfied. So this is the very nature of these so-called enjoyments, which is known as the dissatisfaction of change, in that because its very nature is one which is contaminated, is brought about through destructive emotion and karma, ultimately it cannot give us anything that is other than that, and as that in and of itself is dissatisfaction. This kind of supposed joy and enjoyments cannot give us anything which is outside of this contaminated and thereby dissatisfying existence. This is then what is known as the kind of all-pervading dissatisfaction, which is the third of this group of three, and it's within this that we find that the root cause of our dissatisfaction, that is, living an existence which is not under our own demeanour, under our own power, living an existence which is contaminated by, or marred by, or tainted by, or has the scent of being brought about through destructive emotion, an action which comes about through that. Living within this, it is impossible to find any lasting kind of peace and happiness. So it is the mind which kind of turns away from existence under the dominion of the destructive emotions and karma that is then the ultimate realization of a person of middling capacity. So looking at our existence within this contaminated existence and then working on the spiritual reflections with a contented mind, looking objectively at the different experiences within the cycle of existence, as the Kadampa masters of the past have said, that there is not much difference between living in the peak of the cycle of existence, as I mentioned earlier. There is this desire realm, on the top that there is the form, on the top that there is the formless realm. Within the four concentrations of the formless realm, there is the peak of the cycle of existence. So whether one is born there or in the lowest of the hells, with regard to the dissatisfactory nature of that existence and the fact that it is at some point going to change, there is not really much difference between the two. So looking then within the kind of supposedly higher realms of existence, within which we are to experience more kind of pleasure, that is to say the human and divine realms, and looking at the amount of dissatisfaction which is subsumed under or within these realms of existence. As Ayadeva mentions, it is 400 stanzas, that within the world, the rich suffer mentally and the poor suffer physically. Whichever of the two, one is still dissatisfied. So here, if we look at wealthy people, they worry about holding on to their wealth, looking after and guarding their possessions, etc. Even though these extremely wealthy individuals have not much physical hardship, then nevertheless they mentally have a lot of dissatisfaction and difficulties. If we look at the poor individuals, we see that they have to work, perhaps grafting all day long in some manual labour, etc. They also have to work hard to cook their own food, and cleaning and all these kind of activities. So physically, they may have a lot of difficulties in fulfilling those particular jobs and doing the kind of household chores, etc. So whether the dissatisfaction or suffering is a mental one or a physical one, within the realm of cycle of existence, all the experiences of that, if dissatisfying, this is just a brief kind of quotation from the Ayadeva's 400 stanzas, which kind of brings to mind the different types of dissatisfaction we can experience, be they physical or mental. And as the great Drupa Kakyu master, Sampagari, mentions, that if one kind of turns away from the kind of world mentally, then if one has the kind of contentment, content here that refers to engaging in one's spiritual practice, just to be content with that, if mentally one says, I have enough, then one has the greatest of all riches. If one is a content individual, content to dwell within and engage in one's kind of spiritual practice, then even if one has nothing, if one doesn't have any money at all, one is said to be the richest of all individuals. Whereas if one is like a king, for example, collecting gold and so forth, if one doesn't have a contentment, then one will never be satisfied. No matter how much wealth one wants, one will still want more. So such an individual is not one who is rich at all, really. He is an individual who is continually hampered mentally through not having any kind of peace of mind. Whereas even the poorest of paupers or poor people, if possessed of this mind of great contentment, then no matter what their situation, they will find themselves adorned with the greatest of all riches, that of the kind of content and peaceful state of mind. So thus then one should contemplate how within this kind of content notion, content to engage in spiritual practice, and then turn away from the supposed joys of the future existences, that is to say divine and human existences. Turning away from that then is then the spiritual destination or realization of a person of middling capacities. And the obstacle thereto is a fascination or obsession with achieving a kind of well-being for oneself in one's future existences. So understanding that as the blockage, and then the fruition is then a mind which is turned away from the delights of the cycle of existence in general. So then one utilizes the first reflection to generate a mind which wishes to emerge from this life, and then with the second contemplation, one generates the actual renunciate's mind which wishes to definitely emerge from the cycle of existence.
바로 되지만 정말 저거 지다 로버를 자스 되게 메바단 저서 말씀 뭐 바바제는 좋은 줄 있다는데 마셔란도 뒷보란도 뒷면서 체리 보디지 고무디지 가라라셔라 저거로 되지만 정말 저거 되는다는 마다월 제대로 뭐하고도 라야 라지도 동바나바야 나바지도 또 동바니 손소를 동바니 해마에 동바니를 저기 해마에 노태견도 좋아하는 주제단 넘바시바나 동바오 셔를 되다 동바니 대체님의 마마지바 망가바 주마메바 주마다 저와 주와메바 강와메바 오 셔를 되다는 동바니를 듣는 좋아하는 주시면 넘바지바 Mime no me na me de me me chume do me come never need you come eat number she go you for the young Mariba Saba never negaji me gaji sibe for the young medo de Dunga the Punjo Tom Obadana me she me to ba me madopa yamedo jere Chanju Samana Toba me Cherry Shero de Paro de Chumbala in the Sana Tuba me Traba me the Chindi Rolation and Yangal and the Kara Chun to do some number of jugglers and the Tamjita. Shero de Paro de Chumbala de Nana me by Andaba to the Chandu Bato San de the Shero de Paro de Chimbenha. The Bachimbenha, Anna me Benha, Menyamba, and Benha, Tomat and the Roti Shore Tibenha. Jimben and the Machaba de Shero de Paro de Chimben Mahamia Batea, Mate Parama de Parasama de Bodi so Sheriff Janju Sumba Sumba Jumbo Sumba Samara Robajo, then the Jun and the Din and the Delegate, the Janju Sumba Jumbo Baba de the Mundura, the Chijawajan. Lezo, the Jibu did it, and the Jibu did it, and the Chidati did the Magan, the Sheriff de Paro de Jamas, Monatiba did the Jibanum, the Jisuira, Mojo, the Garden. So that the Masharan to Jibu, and the Jumba Jumbo Baba did his own Jutan, Sunjuda, and the Pura, the Rata, Hada, Meta, Hamaya, the Jibu, the Iran, the Sumbala Mamba to Karaji Venejo Tampane, Jungai to the Jen to Ramay to Yen, Nezo Kandu Tola Chata, dear Mazamara, the Summer. Zamara Jadara Zamaraya Pia Danga the Paranga the Parasanga the Motis of Baba Kudu to create the bit of teacher and give a Jimmy Kurin and Button Tishan Guru Sova, Gire Dora, Jidri, Shua, Amadin, Vijay, and Atawata. There's also to Betashi, Titan, Nanda Samadi, Tambaye, Nashi, Jambaye, Jambaye, Demetawa, Susu, Tabara, Juba, Nimbo, Cheva. Rani Sutur, Roma, Tijendo, Matundu, Akunja, and Awakunan, Water, Putive, Jaju, Central Combarati. Sadaji, Sudana, Zona, Kumamena, Jaju, Mindo, Valeba, Tona, Jatu, Tambara, Zumba, Tabelobati. Rovera, Yawaki, Jana, Suji, Juba, Yisina, Rabu, Sundu, Divera, Nutula, Tomorrow, John, the Juba, Nataba, Kundi, Tuju, Tuji, Jumo, Tamba, Tara, Newton, Juba, Tingera, the Jamutu, Nanda, Tansi, Tamba, Suana, Jima, Mimini, Genesu, Tampi, Suma, Tingera, Tinin, Body. Nanam taking on a Zumba, Yitin, and you told him, Mayo, and the Suji, Juba, Tingera, the Dala, something missing, and that's the end of it. Chidanangi Padu Jibu Tunyawa Shiva Chindi Lotus Jiva Kunda Yandala Mata and the Michi Perano Jiji Sadalamji Indiana Doji Changi Kuman Toshu. Sanji Judan Soji Chanala, Ajanju Bardo Dane, Chotsuchi, Dagi, Chichi, Jibi, Sunaji, Nola, Pinjis, Lubarajo, Sanji Judan Soji Chanala, Ajanju Bardo Dane, Chotsuchi, Dagi, Chichi, Jibi, Sunaji, Nola, Pinjis, Sanji, Lubarajo, Sanji Judan Soji Chanala, Ajanju Bardo Dane, Chotsuchi, Jibi, Sunaji, Nola, Pinjis, Sanji, Lubarajo. Adana Memeda Meo, Suji, Chawachana, Sanji Sambara, David, the Dutchess, and the Trinity, I get out of the Jake, to Bomsada, me, and I'm down, walk with Jetan and Chetamba, and Jake to the children go. Wala so the Dama Jana Gata, and the Saint Tamdi Jibundo, Tajana Machipa, Jumbo, and Soba Sandy to command the Moji in one to Sobacha. Here Daba Cherry Chido, Mata Jerry Sono Himbe Nedua, Shenda Chimbo Rudu of Comeni Jalanzoro, Jungle Fuji of Tonga, George Yami, George Chimbo, and Jungle Fuji of Tonga, Basamo. Doma Jusora Tanji, Himbe Duba, Tanju Lamge in Bichi, and Tuma Yubenane, Jaju, Sumba Dene, Kisam Kasa, Sonam Jatu Zebe, and the city Yunjin did of somebody Joe and Yimokono Kunji, but not ever set of the somebody shows.
So initially, then let us correct our motivation for receiving the teaching, thinking that as far as space extends, existing within that space are countless individuals in the state of dissatisfaction, and in order to benefit each and every one of them by separating them from that dissatisfying state, I myself must achieve the state of perfection, abandoning all that which is to be abandoned and accruing all positive qualities, the pinnacle of sentient evolution, that is to say, the state of complete and perfect Buddhahood. And in order to do that, I must know how to practice, and in order to know how to practice, I must initially receive instructions for the practice. And from within the variety of instructions, I'm going to receive this commentary on the graduated stages of the path to enlightenment, which is written by the third Dalai Lama. And with this attitude in mind, then we'll continue with the teaching.
Nanjo Nejana Tetache, Tande Chitante, John Sawo, Shiki Sumbana Shinke, Mada Denebe, Chanchu Seven Buchiti, Mane Tabachimbe, Denebe, Jukuim, Tabachimbe, Ralan Juku, what did the Senti, Daytani, Senti Tito Langi, Jonshin, Jonshin, Marado Chudenda Vodiana, Soshin Sene, the Tita, Soshin, not it. That the day of the Jonshin. Lochi Juba Kundi Shidante, Talachi, Juba Jasiti, Chaka Juba Poro de Timbatu, the Dumu Shila, so but to talk Nolo de Mayan, Shidante, Tanju sent Juba. Sony Kuna Soda, Sunam Jusoda, Ishi to Samaloya, send you to sit up in Yeso. Send you to sit here, and send you to see Yavati and the name Cha, and then Mambo said Jutu. Send you to San Tiki, Cha San. And the Jata Mambo and the Sele Tutuya. Jata came to Dane, Notican and Karsad, Sonia Gona, Sinti Tita Wilson, Ranjam Kitu, the Sunam Teresa, Ranjam, Tai Yebet, and Nebe, Giroto, Tante, Dala, Jubal Tibet, and Nebe, Topi Jitul, Megu Chuanji, that day, Rotane Jesse can do some Banam, can do the same day. Sudam the chip to the water, so Yamsaranjaki, so the Chanju the sending Yaman. Yes, Nandu Bamarayan and Yaman, the Chabani, Charando and Degada Tumbu and Tomber Chili, yes, on the Titanic and Doba Zabananje. That one of Chanju the same, then it's Juma Mahiba, you're not heard it. Then men I am one of Chanju, the Juma Tunji, set up a one head, assembly Chabu.
So then to quote from the great enlightened master Tsongkhapa, development of the body-mind, the thought of enlightenment, is a central pillar of Mahayana practice, the foundation of the bodhisattva activities, an elixir producing the gold of merit and wisdom, a mind holding the infinite varieties of goodness. Knowing this, courageous followers of the Buddhas hold it tightly at the center of their hearts. I, a yogi, practiced. Such, you who wish for liberation should practice likewise. So here we talk about the precious mind of bodhicitta, that attitude aspiring to the highest enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Here there are a few examples. This mind is likened then to the central pillar of Mahayana practice. Here this doesn't carry the full impact of the Tibetan, where it's likened to the life force of the Mahayana practice. Also, a different way of looking at it is, for example, when we build a reliquary, a stupa. Inside of that, the most important thing is the what is known as the central pillar or the life force pillar of that particular reliquary. So if the stupa is the Mahayana teaching, then the life force or the life tree therein is that mind of bodhicitta. It is then the foundation for all the other bodhisattva activities. Whatever activity that person engages in, to be such, needs to be founded upon having generated this attitude of bodhicitta. It is like the alchemist's elixir, producing gold, transforming all ordinary activities into merit and wisdom, just as an alchemist's elixir transforms all iron into gold. In the same way, the alchemist of the bodhisattva, this elixir of this attitude, transforms all activities into merit and wisdom. It is like a mine. For example, if you think of a mine holding precious substances, etc., here then the mine is that mind or the attitude of bodhicitta, within which one finds the infinite varieties of goodness, good action and conduct. Knowing this then, the courageous followers of the Buddhas, those who aspire to achieve Buddhahood, that is to say, hold this attitude tightly within the center of their hearts. So Tsongkhapa here concludes by saying that I himself practiced like this. So he practiced this type of yoga or spiritual discipline, and then those of you, the disciples, who would like to achieve such states, should copy him, should do exactly what he did in order to achieve such spiritual realization. So for that reason, in his poem of spiritual realization, this is the quotation discerning the qualities of bodhicitta. So for those of us who are listening, if we have bodhicitta, then great, we should bring it to mind. But if we do not have it, at least in a contrived sense, we should continually bring this attitude to mind again and again until we're actually able to develop it perfectly.
Oh yeah. That number 10 micho be samba senje de sendri menyang be jur senje la tusu phe chu de tan thamba la haba senje mun phe chu de ne phu de jeba la haba hange den de senje be senje lue mi ko la haba cho sa ba la haba da che ne sa ji ji ha sa ji ji ga nan ge thambo de ne na de ne sendri menyang be jur senje la tusu phe chu de tambala no basing dim ke da te kana de sana chanju chu de senji ba samji lam ne thamji ji chu be ne chu nyara da ton nam de ri ju go ne siji ne rem la so be ne da dwen ji mi chu shin shi so de le nam de tseme du ru ne so la so ba ji ji da nu de ta di ba ta ji shi ta ji shi de chawa ya nu du jo chanju ji senji be pe zu zu chu na ne Nakara Mishoma Shibe said that the Minumber compared the Chibuan Hamdo, some Tumay. That Janju to same Chiba Samji, Jikan Hamid be Chaja Joduson, Janju the same Chibi Kiji, Tinelaya, Tinja Kasa, the Nyawabata, Tunduta, the 10 member Yenaya, Hada Chibi, Jikan Hamdi, Chaji Lusu. Ana Jane, Yero Dajo Banam, Riju on the city name. On the Karasana Ben Bibi won the Chebayana, Bena, Doji Rumuchi Chaja, Siji Jan Cheper the Papa Tamki, Siji number joys. Huluju Jabuka Tenebe, Rochuma Yenaya, and Lumbo Kamba, Yanda Yoba to Zut, be Siji Nendo, yes, one, be one, and it's a Suma. That Himela Soba said, Hemisid the Tamarato, Mone, Himel, Senate, that's at the Dujango about to Zoda, and Dwana Kela Soba to Zuga, and Mitsuba. Sanju say you're not to Zuga. Better what Jeba and a cousin Marato Locho, Sijima Sungengi, Lord Tombadoji, Singi Shumujua, Honshu de Pania, Jeda, Dam Pandit in the Kashiti Yoni, never Jeva Yoni, to the Pompundana Mayuro. Then to the Pania, Dinane, Landitiki, Di, Midi, Marajo Tandalo, who sent it in those. Marajo Tandalia, Michu down Muji, and the Chedidu, Holland never tended the Samaris and the Labi Ruju. And then Gangi Mitsuba. She saw the land of the timid Rubas. Nede show up, said the son of Jebal also the Leto Doyan, Chanchu the same Yana, they made the Rutuba. Chanchu the same Mena, Rukai. And then Chanchu the same Yana, Neswana Sobati, Yawa the Yada Tundula Soba to do the Jelio. That day, the Nibe let something, Dibi let something was on the Jeba Yana, Jen and Lamsa, not the Taribu, but then to Mobe, choose the Jelia Taribu. Diba Tau Chimbo, then it be Shada Chimbo, Sasha, Dibi Chanju the same within it, Tabache to go to Mado, Shanaka Tabache to listen, usually, the Bashin to Tom Chim Mesepa, 10 Zubi Chanju, same member, Gijin Hung Sijin number, Jurish and Sunda. The Bashin to Tom Chawa to Zubi Chanju, the size of Muchamato, Yawa Chanda, you call Sijin and Tabache to Madison. That Chanju sent to be paid. The Zulu Juba Yena, Nangi Kamana, Shugu Madison. So that the David and the Janju sent it in the hair chamber one, and Janju sent the menu of one on the power, Chiku, somewhere one. That's how the town about this one.
So to continue with our instruction manual, however, merely meditating upon the body-mind is not enough. One should also maintain the following 4 trainings. So here there's an outline of 4. The training of recalling the beneficial effects of the body-mind, the training of giving rise to thoughts of the body-mind 6 times a day, the training of not mentally abandoning any of the beings for whom one has taken the vow of the body-mind, and the training of increasing one's inner spiritual potential or practice. So here then there's the outline of 4, so let's look at each one of these. The training of recalling the beneficial effects of the bodhicitta means that one should maintain a constant awareness of the following teachings, which is condensed from this book, Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. The moment one develops the thought of enlightenment, one becomes an object of worship for human and gods alike. So the moment one gives rise to this attitude of bodhicitta, whatever one's predicament, that is to say whether one is born, whether one is within the confines of the hell realm, whether one is born in an animal realm, even though one's basis for life, one's form is inferior, one still becomes an object of veneration by all the humans and gods alike, because one is possessed of this attitude of bodhicitta. If you'd like an example to illustrate this point, if one is a wheel-turning king, the most powerful monarch, if one as that kind of monarch has a child, even though the child may not know anything, still that child is worthy of the kind of veneration of all the kind of great elders, court ministers, etc., because of his particular royal lineage. So in the same way that one becomes possessed of this great lineage of those who aspire to the highest enlightenment for the benefit of all others, once having generated this attitude, by means of fundamental nature, one surpasses the brilliance of the listeners and the self-realized ones, practiced of the lesser vehicle, just as even a fraction of a diamond is more valuable than gold and other gems. So in the same way, being possessed of such an attitude, the possession of such an attitude makes one a more worthy practitioner than any of the other types of practitioners. One passes beyond the reach of illnesses and destructive enemies, or whether they be embodied or disembodied. the various accomplishments of peace, increase, and so forth are easily achieved. One will no longer be born in the three miserable realms of existence. It is said that through generating this mind, that one will be able to remove from one's being previously accrued destructive actions, so that one will not have to bear the full force of this effect, of allowing it to ripen in a very quick fashion, which is akin to plucking out of a seed. And this is mentioned in Shantideva's Guide to the Body Sattva's Way of Life, in which he mentions that only through neutralizing the cleansing product of bodhicitta, one is able to really rid oneself of previously accrued destructive action. Here then, if we were to consider that, well, this mind or this attitude of bodhicitta is really something wonderful. Is it possible to measure it? Here then, if we were to transform this attitude, which is a mental one obviously, into form, it is said that even the sky, which is without center and limits, would not be able to contain the beneficial effects of generating such an attitude. So thus then one should contemplate and then not allow the attitude of bodhicitta which one has developed to degenerate, but continually reflecting on the benefits thereof. One should continually develop this mind or this attitude of bodhicitta. And as it is said, which I forgot to mention earlier, in the biography of the individual Ulangatamba, who is the person who wrote the 8 verses of thought transformation, which we went through last week, it is said that he generated this mind all the time, and it is said that he was sleeping under a pass, and a group of malicious spirits came and they saw him and they said, well, should we just cause this fellow some discomfort? And within that group there was one of them said, actually he's the one who develops the supreme mind of awakening or bodhicitta for the benefit of all of us, so we'd better just leave him alone. So this kind of historical point just illustrates that if one has developed this mind, then no kind of embodied or disembodied entities can harm one in the slightest.
Senje ngwe pewe chudu le chu de jeba da no ba se